My talk is called Bottle Tops, Buds and Bellyaches, How an Albatross Taught Me to Surf. Hopefully it will make sense by the end. And you've all met me, you know, I'm based in Bristol. I'm an author and a founder of City to Sea. So as I said before, we're a community interest company, so a non-profit running campaigns to help stop the flow of plastic pollution from city to sea. So I founded City to Sea in last year. We were the European Green Capital of Europe in Bristol last year, which was an amazing accolade and a really, really great thing. And then you'd go down onto the banks of the River Avon and literally be up to your knees in plastic bottles and plastic waste that was flowing out of Bristol. Now we have this huge tidal range, the second biggest in the world in the Severn Estuary. So you really get to see just the tides of plastic coming in and out. And I thought, if we are the green capital of Europe, what chance has the rest of the world got, developing world, if we can't do something about it here? So that was my inspiration. So I looked around me and got together people in a room. I just invited everyone, academics, researchers, individuals, organisations, to come together in Bristol. And that's how City to Sea was born. I've got a great team. We set up officially as a CIC earlier this year. We've got a board of 3 female directors and a fantastic steering group of 8 people. And so I'm going to share with you some of our core campaigns today. Refill, which you've heard about already, and I'll tell you a bit more about where that's going nationally. And Switch the Stick, our campaign to call on retailers to get them to stop making cotton buds out of plastic and get them to be made out of paper instead. So talking about Refill first, ideally we ran a public consultation in Bristol trying to look at how we could stop all the single-use plastic bottles that were flowing out of the Avon. And water fountains were identified as the big win. That would be how we would have the most impact. But it was really lengthy. People had been trying to do it for 2 years already. It was expensive. There was this question of who would maintain them. So whilst that's something we were working on, during a public consultation, an audience member from Bude stood up and said, well, how about you have a look at Refill, which is happening down in Bude? So we did. And as I said, with Mum being down here, she introduced me to Deb Rosser. Deb, are you here? Yeah, see, she's going to hate me for doing this, but basically because of Deb and Martin having this idea, this campaign has basically gone national now, and it's because of people like Deb who are really acting locally. You know, she's got the bigger picture in mind, but is showing up and volunteering and coming up with these ideas. So Deb, I really want to give you a round of applause and say thank you. And she introduced me to Neil from Beachcare. Neil, where are you? Hi. So we haven't actually met, and I've spoken to Neil so many times on the phone and by email. So I'll come and give you a hug later on. So basically, I spoke to Neil, and he said, yeah, I'm really happy for you to run Refill in Bristol, see what happens on a city level. So we got some funding from Bristol 2015 at the time, so that was another perk to us being Green Capital. There was a bit of funding around. We launched Refill Bristol. Within 4 months, we had 200 refill stations across the city. That was places that were offering to give free tap water away. We had a little network. We were mapping them on Google Maps, and it was amazing. We had teams of volunteers going out. We got so many businesses were coming to us as well, saying, can we be a refill station? So it really did work on a city level. Going forward this year, Bristol Water came to us and said, we'd really like to help support this, because obviously you are doing some really great PR for our product. So it's a natural partner for water companies across the UK, because we're basically saying, drink tap water. We've got some of the best tap water here in the world. We do not need to be buying it in single-use plastic bottles. So because of the media attention that we got in Bristol, we were then approached by other organisations, other volunteers and groups around the UK who want to run Refill as well. And that recently came about with Refill Dorset, which launched in July, with Litter Free Coast and Sea working with the Dorset Wildlife Trust. So really great way of seeing just how they are spreading the word about Refill as well. And then I'm really happy to announce that in the next, when's it coming, Neil? Next few weeks? Okay, well, very soon you will have Refill Devon, which is really, really exciting, and that's working together with Keep Britain Tidy and Beach Care, and I think a really nice example of how we can collaborate. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel and do another refill scheme when you were already doing a fantastic refill scheme here. I wanted there to be a way that we could support the work that you were doing here and take that nationally. So keep an eye out for these stickers. They're in windows across the UK. There's a lot more groups. We're looking at, we've been talking to ZSL, the Zoological Society of London, to work with One Less and to look at doing Refill London. So that's in the pipeline, as is Brighton. And then we've got loads of small other organisations. So we're just looking at sort of different funding models and how we can support those. So basically, whenever you come to Bristol, you don't ever need to buy a single-use plastic bottle again. Bring your refill bottle. And do look out for our app. We received some funding earlier this year from the Geovation programme. If you're innovators and you're working in the environment in some way, I suggest looking up the Geovation Challenge. They run challenges in different subjects every year. And we were lucky enough to win a place on their programme this year, which was about water, specifically how to address plastic pollution. So we went with them, to them with the refill idea. And the problem with refill was that we had no way of showing how many people were using it. We could have refill stations around the UK, but no one could say what impact we were having. So the idea was to develop a refill rewards app, which actually incentivizes people to use refill, and more importantly, to tell us when they're using it. So now when you use the refill app, which is due out, it's in testing phase at the moment, when you use it, you can just record that you've refilled and you get points. And what do points make? Oh, okay, that's pretty good, thank you. Initially, those prizes will convert into a stainless steel water bottle. So when you've done about 100 refills, you get a free water bottle. And we're currently talking to online retailers and ethical retailers about offering vouchers so that you really can get some sort of cash equivalent rewards just for your refill behaviour. The other exciting thing about that is if you don't have a refill scheme in your area, as a volunteer, you can go out and you can add refill stations through the app. So you can literally go out and sign up refill stations yourself, which we're really excited about. So that's refill. Boo. Do you know what those are? Of course you do, because you live on the beaches. I hate cotton buds with a passion. And as we all know, there are millions of them. Well, I assume you know, millions of these are littering our beaches. And not just our beaches, our riverbanks. As I said, along the riverbank in Bristol, which is where I tend to do my sort of gorge clean or beach cleans, I can pick up these in their hundreds on just a half a kilometre stretch of riverbank, hundreds of cotton buds. And to me, that is just insane. They make up 60% of all sewage-related debris. Not in volume, but in terms of numbers, and they're in the top 5 plastic items found in beach cleans. Now, for me, they don't need to be made out of plastic. It's an easy switch, so that's why we developed a campaign called Switch the Stick to get retailers to switch from plastic to paper. Earlier this year, Johnson & Johnson and Waitrose announced that they would be changing to paper, which was fantastic news, and pretty much down to the work of a small Scottish charity called Fidra, who, unbeknownst to us, had been working behind the scenes for 2 years, just speaking to these retailers and telling them what they needed to do. So again, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We were kind of some way down the line with the Switch the Stick campaign. So I got in touch with Fidra and I said, how can we support the work you're doing? You know, how can we work together? And they said that they weren't planning on running a public-facing campaign, but they felt it could really do with some more public awareness. So I went to these water companies. In fact, I went to all the water companies, all 9 of our sewage companies in the UK, and 3 of them stepped forward to fund the campaign. So it's with thanks to Wessex Water, Thames Water and Anglian Water that we're able to run the Switch the Stick campaign. So we launched week before last. We're only a small organisation, but we put the video out on Facebook and we've had something like 80,000 views on Facebook. We had thousands and thousands of shares, which has been fantastic. that's converted to almost 3,000 signatures on the Switch the Stick site. Signatures is what we need because the retailers aren't really going to be interested in our amazing Facebook shares. They're going to be interested in how many of their customers have said, I am not buying plastic stem cotton buds again. So I would love your help by sharing it with your networks and signing the petition yourself. And if each of you shared it with just 10 people, but not just shared it, actually got 10 people to sign it, then we could be looking at some much more interesting statistics by the end of September, which is really important because I'm meeting all of the big retailers on the 28th of September. So I've got a meeting with Tesco. Actually, no, Tesco's aren't going. Asda, Morrison, Sainsbury's, Lidl, Aldi, Boots, Superdrug. And I'm going to be presenting to them what's happened in the first month of our campaign. So it's a 6-month campaign. And we didn't get all the funding we were hoping for, but my target by the end of this month is 10,000 signatures. So I've got 7,000 in 2 weeks, and I would really love your help. I think this is one we can win. But more than just share my campaigns with you, I wanted to share a little bit about my journey of how I got to be here today and doing the work that I do. This time, 3 years ago, I had no relationship with this whatsoever. The sea was just not on my radar. In fact, it was on my radar, but as this really, really scary thing. I didn't want to go in it. I didn't want to go on it. I hated being in boats, and I hated flying over it so much that I pretty much had to take drugs every time I flew over the sea. Just call me B.A. Baracus on that one. I was. It was, you know, and I lived in a city. I just didn't have a relationship with it at all. So what happened? Well, this happened, and I'm forever grateful to Chris Jordan, the artist who took these pictures, for bringing this issue to my attention. And it's so used. It's almost a cliche to show this picture now, but it's because of this that I'm here, and because of this that so many movements were born. And for me, it was seeing those everyday items inside the belly of an albatross chick that it just makes me so emotional. It's just so not okay. And to see bottle tops from drinks that I drank, ink cartridges, toothbrushes, something about this image made me fall into levels of grief and despair around an environmental problem that I hadn't experienced before. And it was that got me to think, well, what can I do about it? And at the time, I'd sometimes dabble in writing music, and I'd written a song which I thought could go really well to a music video about plastic pollution. It wasn't that successful. The song was great, but the video didn't do that well. But I started running a crowdfunder campaign to fund the video. So this is how it started. I thought, right, I'll raise some money, and I'll put the video out there. And something unexpected happened during the course of that crowdfunding campaign. I went away to a beach hut for a weekend in the real crunch point. If anyone's here has ever run a crowdfunding campaign, it's not pretty. In the middle sort of 2 weeks, it can be really stressful and hard work. And I went away for a little break, and I went to sleep that night in the beach hut. And I dreamt that the waves of the sea were just lapping at the beach hut door right by my head. And the next night in the beach hut, I dreamt that I was outside on the shore, and there was all these people milling around on the shore. And when I went home the next night, I dreamt that I was paddling in the sea. And at that point, I was like, this is weird. I'm having strange dreams every night. And they carried on. The night after, I dreamt I was on a boat and I was having the best time. It was just really, really, really good fun. And I wondered where all this was going. And the following night, I dreamt I was in the sea and I was swimming and I was fine. And the next night, this is where it gets a bit cosmic, I dreamt I was a dolphin and I was in this pod of dolphins and we were just coursing through the surf and just, oh, it was amazing. And I woke up the next morning and I said, wow, that was incredible. Not wanting this to stop. The next night, I was one of 5 whales and I was there with my family. to have had that experience, I know you could say it's not real, it felt real, I was there. I felt what it was like to have the sea as my home, and to be held by the sea. And when I woke up that morning, I laughed to myself. I was like, it's going to be sharks. It's going to be sharks. And sure enough, that last night, the final night of this series of dreams, I dreamt I was a shark. I was with the sharks, and that was pretty wild too. So I felt very different after that. I don't know what happened. I was free. Something had changed in me. I'd somehow, beyond any rational explanation, been healed of my fear of the sea. I'd put my energy into working for the sea, and somehow the sea had put its energy back in me. And I knew at that point I wanted to go in the sea. It was a new feeling. I just was really excited about going in. And this was me after my first surf, just out here, 2 years ago. I think stoked is the word. The feeling of first paddling out. In fact, I didn't paddle out. I got in out past the sea pool. But the feeling of being on a board and just having not caring about what was underneath me. I was caring about the waves that were coming, and that was just incredibly liberating. And I think this magic comes down to service. I think that's what this magical energy is. I think when we give from the heart, we're changed. I went from being freaked out by the sea to having a relationship with it. And it's not just the relationship with the sea either that's come. It's a relationship with you, people like Martin and Deb and Neil. It's the people that we meet through doing the work that we do. Through being out on a beach and making it clean again. And there are definitely days when we maybe don't spend enough time with our families, and we spend hours stuck to our screens, and maybe we stress out over funding, but it makes such a huge difference, the work that we do. In 100 years, when we're all dead and gone, maybe our kids' will look back and say, thank you for all those hours you spent coding that website. Thank you for changing your buying and packaging policies. Thank you for the hours of research that you poured into this subject, for the innovation that you showed and delivered, for that time you surfed that wave that almost killed you, but you went on to inspire thousands of people to love the sea. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you did. Now, they probably won't, but I think it's a really good thing to be doing anyway. And I saw this quote, and it just felt appropriate. I slept and I dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and I saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. So thank you all for being here and for listening, and thank you for doing what you do.